This video is brought to you by Morning Brew. You know, you could start the day in many ways. You could blearily scroll through Twitter hashtags to find out who's got beef with who, getting lost and spiraled into the social media death trap. Or you could open up your free daily copy of Morning Brew and get up to speed on all the best tech, business and finance news in a sharp, sweet 5 minutes. And look, keeping up with traditional news media can be very dense, a bit dry and dull, and end up with you scrolling and searching to distraction through various web pages. Whereas Morning Brew is written to be sharp, witty and focused on the relevant bits you'll want to take on board. This week I've learned the details of Europe's monumental task of trying to pivot away from Russia as an energy source, an extremely complicated and important job that maybe should have been done a while ago. I've also read how student loans in the US might be frozen again, leading for louder and louder calls to finally write the whole lot off, which would be monumental. So if you're interested in tech stuff, you want to keep up with finance and business news, Morning Brew is perfect for you and completely free. Signing up takes 15 seconds, just click the link in the description of this video and boom, you're all done. Thanks Morning Brew. The Saudi Arabian Grand Prix weekend was a lot, wasn't it? Far too much happening off track than any of us really needed, and the constant looming threat of someone doing themselves a terrible injury on this unnecessarily dangerous track, but we'll get to all that. On the positive side of things, the actual race was a good one, exciting and interesting in both on-track action and strategic plays. And let's start off with a continuation from what we suspected after Bahrain. You can follow. Granted, we're only 2 tracks deep into this season and still need to gather data before celebrating too hard, but here we are at a very different track to Bahrain and still seeing cars able to follow closely right through the lap. Multiple drivers affirmed after the race how much easier it was to stay with the car in front without losing grip and without overheating the tyres. The battle between Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso went on for lap after lap after lap, and while the main overtaking spot remained down the DRS zone, the reason they were able to keep resuming their fight was from their ability to follow each other through the 27 corners on this fast, windy sort of street track. This wasn't seasons gone by where you'd have a crack at an overtake and then have to back off and cool the car down, or where keeping your nose in touch with the car ahead wrecked your grip enough to drop you back and out of the DRS zone. No, these cars were keeping together and able to launch attacks over and over. That's great. Let's hope this continues at the rest of the tracks. The Leclerc-Verstappen battle was brilliant once again, but as in Bahrain, we saw the drivers fighting over who got granted DRS. Now Leclerc told us after Bahrain that in his scrap with Verstappen, he let Verstappen win position into turn 1 in order to grab DRS for the rundown to turn 4 to retake the lead. Now this is a bold choice, honestly. Ceding the lead like that gives you no guarantee of getting it back, but Leclerc made it work rather brilliantly. Here in Jeddah, the DRS run to the final corner, turn 27, leads onto the main straight with another powerful DRS zone. With the DRS in the final sector and the ability of these cars to stay close, Verstappen was finding himself able to make a move on Leclerc into the final corner. But this meant that Leclerc could grab DRS power, stay close and easily grab the lead back down the main straight. Same flavour as Bahrain, really. But Max, he's no fool, he's not going to keep letting that happen. So what we ended up with was what got called DRS chicken, with both drivers playing silly buggers and locking brakes and each trying to be just behind the other as they crossed the DRS detection line. It was fascinating stuff, perhaps a little silly, but seeing the drivers get clever and tactical on the fly was super exciting. Eventually, Verstappen did get past Leclerc just by being able to follow him through 27, pick up the DRS and use it down the main straight. From there, he had superior pace to hang on to the lead until the end. Just about. But let's talk about DRS then. Clearly, these cars can follow more closely, and clearly, DRS is so powerful that the drivers are willing to give up track position to get it. So is this a sign we're now at a point we can start thinking about removing DRS entirely? Something a lot of people have been crying out for. Well, the drivers aren't entirely convinced yet. Both Verstappen and Leclerc were saying that it is still needed to ensure the cars are actually able to stay close and pass. Max said, "If I didn't have DRS today, I would never have passed, and that the cars are still too sensitive." Charles similarly saying, as much as following has been better from last year to this year, and it is a positive step, I still think it's not enough to get rid of the DRS. But what I do think F1 can start doing and experimenting with is reducing the power of the DRS. We often go to tracks with multiple DRS zones. Do we need all of them? Well, in some cases, they do actually work quite well together. In Bahrain and Jeddah, we had one DRS zone leading onto another, giving us this great pass, repass, cat and mouse, back and forth action. It allows drivers to fight back, so a DRS pass isn't one and done. But they also have a third DRS zone. How important is that? Would the cars drift apart without it? This is something we can play with and work out at different tracks. And what about the length of the DRS zones? Can we start reducing them down a bit so they still allow drivers to finish off the move, but not be so potent that drivers are squabbling with each other to be last into the detection zone? And we can keep dialing DRS in as we go and learn more about these cars. Now, tyre-wise, I think they got it just right here. The compound choices were pretty perfect, I think. The softs were fast for qualifying pace, the mediums were quick but had a short lifespan and needed looking after a bit, and the hards could be pushed and maintain their pace over long runs, keeping their potency, even running in dirty air. We saw Verstappen's race come alive in the second half as he was able to push on his hard tyres in ways he wasn't able to on the medium, leading to his all-out attack on Leclerc in the closing stages. And Hamilton, who had started on hards and opted not to stop during the safety car, was able to attack and keep pace on his old hards against cars on newer mediums. There was great balance and strategic skill in the distribution of these compounds. And then we come to the track. Look, I'm sure there can be improvements made to the track, but right now it's still too fast, running too close to the barriers that aren't designed to take big impacts. 2 drivers ended up in the hospital, and honestly, I spent a lot of the weekend praying to Giacomelli that we don't get a very nasty accident with cars crashing across the track and being T-boned at 200 miles an hour. Motorsport is dangerous, and yes, they should be fast tracks that test the driver's skill and bravery, but I think the risk of concussion and broken limbs needs to be dialed down a touch. On top of that, recovery teams and vehicles were taking way too long to get to accidents. In the event of anything more sinister, we need to know the drivers are going to be extracted or dealt with quickly. Some people think it's nonsense to be so safety focused, but I think we've seen enough brushes with and losses to death and we should be happy with in motorsport recently, so no need to flirt with the devil more than necessary. It honestly baffles me that they could have built any track, anywhere, and yet they chose to squeeze this high-speed death trap onto a Saudi beach. And finally, look, I'm not a geopolitical expert, and there is a longer discussion to be had about which countries should be hosting races and why, and whether F1 should even be having an opinion on political issues. It is a complicated matter. And yes, I fully appreciate the arguments that it does seem to be easier to criticise Middle Eastern countries and a kind of white imperialistic condescension when we refuse to look in our own backyards. I mean, Britain has a whole load of yikes of its own, and we're going to have 3 races in America. One in Texas with outrageous anti-trans and anti-abortion laws, one in Florida where the hideous don't say gay law is being pushed through, and one in Las Vegas where, well, I don't know about Vegas, everyone who goes there won't talk about it. But the wider point is, drivers shouldn't have to be put in a position where they're taking it upon themselves to work out if racing within eyeball distance of a missile strike is something they should be doing. It was extraordinarily uncomfortable to watch everything unfold on Friday, and I think F1 handled it pretty badly. Look, I hope they stay good to their word in reviewing situations like this and thinking about whether they should be dragging drivers and teams into geopolitical situations like this. Russia was taken off the calendar, but the Yemeni war remains one of the worst ongoing humanitarian crises on the planet, so it seems extraordinary for F1 to just insert itself into the middle of it, perhaps. Anyway, Australia next, and I'm sure they don't do anything awful.